Just about good morning still, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And right up front, I would say thank you to all of you for everything you do on behalf of the armed forces community, for veterans in my particular instance, but right across the community and for their families as well. And it's a fantastic opportunity for me to be here talking to you today on behalf of the Office of Veterans Affairs. So we're very much a new part of the armed forces community sector. And I just want to take you on a little journey this morning for just a few minutes, and then I'll be around later for questions, hopefully, as well, if you want to discuss any more of the detail. Last year, when he became the Conservative Party leader, Boris Johnson decided that he wanted to have an Office for Veterans Affairs. So in July, he announced that we would be creating this office. And I think the key point that I would make about it is a fundamental step change, and the office represents a fundamental step change in the government's philosophical approach to veterans. It's a recognition that across the country, within government, within society, that we need to do more to provide the support for those veterans who do need support. But in particular, and this is one of the major challenges that the Prime Minister set to the office in setting it up, we need to do more to celebrate what it is that veterans and the armed forces community in the round do within our society, both whilst they serve, but also after they've served as well. Because I think Johnny Mercer in particular has a real fundamental concern that the perception of mad, bad, sad veterans remains the predominant narrative for people in society who aren't associated necessarily on a day-to-day basis with this community. So one of the fundamental challenges that the Prime Minister has set us in the Office of Veterans Affairs is to change that narrative and to actually celebrate all the hugely positive things that veterans achieve after they have served, and all the benefits that come to society, all the volunteering, all the great contributions that flow from that. But yes, do more for those, the community who do need support and do need additional help to transition and make successful lives for themselves after they have finished their armed forces service, whatever the circumstances that they have finished their armed services career in. So that was the second challenge the Prime Minister has set us. He is concerned that individuals and their families don't sufficiently know where to go to the help and support that is available. There is masses of it. All of you in this room, people far more experienced than me working in this sector, know just the scale of support that is there for our veterans and armed forces community. But sometimes it's really difficult to access those services. Sometimes people don't know where to go. So the second challenge the Prime Minister has set this office is to make it easier for people to find the information and the services that they need as a veteran if they do need that support. So we've been set up with these two fundamental challenges. Took some time, inevitably, in government when ministers announce something. It takes a bit of time to understand what the architecture is going to be. But in October this year, the middle of October, the Office for Veterans Affairs was launched. David Richmond, who many of you will know, is its first director. I think David is a fantastically qualified individual to lead this organisation. He's a veteran himself. He's commanded at regimental level. He's been through a rehabilitation and transition system. He's been a senior director in one of our largest charities, so brings with him a wealth of experience on connectivity to the organisation. I think it's absolutely right that an organisation that is about veterans is for its first time led by a veteran right from the outset. And there's a reason that the Office for Veterans Affairs is in the Cabinet Office, which is where I work, and our office is there. It does represent a step change. The Ministry of Defence has for many years done a really great job trying to convene the rest of Whitehall and the rest of government, who we all absolutely rely on to deliver services, to create policies that benefit our armed forces community. But the change that ministers want to see is actually using the power that comes from being part of the Cabinet Office right at the heart of government, and use that power for good on behalf of veterans. Because what we as an office rely on are colleagues right across government, right across the veterans sector to deliver on our behalf. So, and with the best respect to our Ministry of Defence colleagues and the fantastic work that's been done over the last 10 years in the Armed Forces Covenant for veterans, it's always competing for the serving community, for time, capacity, for resources. For the first time, ministers and the Prime Minister in particular felt it sufficiently important that the veterans community should have a specific office right at the centre of government for itself. So I genuinely believe, and I'm very privileged to be the first Deputy Director of the organisation, that this marks a real step change in how we're going to support our veterans going forward. 10 seconds on me, my bad. I've just come out of 5 years working with the British Army. I know General Chris very well from those instances. So I have sat round, the biggest service. Clearly I've spent time working with the other two as well. I'm a son of a Royal Air Force veterans, both my mother and my father, and I'm married to an Army veteran. I'm a career civil servant, but for me, there is a personal commitment to this as well, and that comes through in many of the people working in our organisation already at the moment. But I've seen firsthand, say, for the last 5 years or so, around the Army board table, just the challenges in terms of getting those balance of priorities right and the amount of time we need to dedicate to people serving today, to attracting those who serve in the future, and balancing that with the needs of those that become our future veterans in the future. We are here to think about nothing less than the veteran and are the bit of government full-time that is going to be charged with doing that. That doesn't mean we've hoovered up all of the policies and all of the services that other government departments do. We absolutely could not do what we want to do without the support of those. But what we do bring is the political capital and the government engine, for want of a better term, that comes from sitting at the heart of government in the Cabinet Office. And that absolutely, in the minds of the Prime Minister, in the minds of Oliver Dowden, who's the Cabinet Minister now responsible for veterans, in the minds of Johnny Mercer, who is very much the personal advocate and the person that's driven this forward as an agenda and the need for this nation to do more for veterans. The Cabinet Office is exactly the right place for this office to be, to leverage all of the power that government can bring to bear on behalf of veterans. And what we're really lucky with in our organisation is we don't start from scratch. Say, we really got going in October, bit of hiatus for a general election, government goes very quiet for a period of 5-6 weeks. So it's really felt like only from this January we've been able to come into the public consciousness with some of the work that we're going to be doing. And like lots of great organisations, we benefit from what's gone before. So colleagues in the Ministry of Defence have done fantastic work over the last kind of 12, 18 months. Many of you will have, I hope, have contributed to this in creating the first ever strategy for our veterans at the end of 2018. A strategy which is not just about what the UK government and those in Whitehall do, but it's what all the devolved governments have signed up to as well. A genuine collective vision for veterans and their place in society going forward in the strategy for our veterans. And we've inherited that, and it provides brilliant foundation and a brilliant ambition for what we want to do as an office. And within that, there are a number of principles, there are a number of cross-cutting sectors, different services, different niches in society that we need to get right for veterans to be successful. But what underpins all of that is an ambition, and I think it's an incredibly powerful ambition, which is to make this country the best place to be a veteran anywhere in the world. And if I was to say in one word what the Office of Veterans Affairs has been created for, it is to be the fulcrum that brings to life the realisation of that vision for our veterans. We're not going to be the people who decide what that is. That is going to be about engaging massively with the armed forces and the veterans community, the people that provide services and support within that community, the people that can help going forward. Because we need those people to describe for us what it's going to look and feel like to become the best place in the world in the future, to be a veteran. And we need to know what that future is going to look like. The context of an armed forces career, the character of conflict, it's all changing quite significantly. The way our people are going to live in the way they serve, the way people are going to do different careers, the way people are trained in the armed forces, the skill sets that we're going to demand of them in the future. That is going to all change what the needs of the veteran of the future is going to mean. Our job is to understand that and take this sector on the journey to realise that on behalf of everyone. We can't do that on our own. We're going to need massive support from lots of people. But I genuinely believe we're in the right part of central government to bring that to life, and that's what we're going to be doing. But we can only do that if we draw on what Johnny Mercer described. Some of you might have been there at a big event at Deloitte talking about how you create more employment opportunities for veterans and the qualities that veterans bring into the workplace. He talked about a veterans ecosystem. I think the other defining feature of the Office of Veterans Affairs is we are solely here to champion veterans right at the heart of government. But we know it's about a whole ecosystem. Many of our veterans community don't always have a great experience working with government providers. They don't always have a great experience working with charity providers. They don't always have a great experience working with statutory providers. But somewhere within that ecosystem is a really positive outcome for a veteran. And what we want to do is make sure that everything we are doing and working in, I think, a really renewed and refreshed, reinvigorated partnership right across all these providers is put the veteran and their experience right at the centre of that journey. And we've got a lot of work to do to navigate this system. I think we've got some fantastic foundations to start from. But what we need to understand is, say, how do we come together to make sure that whoever is providing the support that a veteran might need, whoever is providing the opportunities, they know where to go and find it, and that we are spending our time championing the vast positives that veterans bring, as much as making sure that we've got the really impressive safety net that we need to have for those who perhaps for whom the transition is more complex. So it's really difficult to illustrate this on a journey because this is just a complex system for all of us. People start in a different place. Some people start with a charity and actually might find that the support they need comes from a statutory provider. It might be from colleagues here in local government. All of it is hugely important, and we need to work with everyone, and we want to work with everyone. And our job is to help enable. You know, sometimes those conversations with central government can be quite challenging. We want to change that paradigm. And if you need somewhere to start a conversation about what you're trying to do in central government, we are a really great place to come and start with that. We can't fix every problem. We can't address every challenge straight away. But what we want to do is go on a journey that describes what that long-term vision is going to be for everyone and work together with everyone to try and realise that. Because what ultimately matters is the experience of that individual veteran. And that is what the Office of Veterans Affairs is absolutely about. The one thing I would say about where we are, we're at a Covenant conference. So it'd be wrong if I didn't talk about the Covenant and, again, where the philosophical position of government is coming from at the moment. The Armed Forces Covenant is hugely important. The strengthening of that in legislation, which the Ministry of Defence are rightly leading on, will have benefits for veterans. I'm absolutely clear about that, and we're a major stakeholder in what those might look like in the future. And they will have an impact on all of us as those who provide statutory services. So we're very interested in that legislation. But for us, the Covenant sets the kind of the baseline, the start point for the support system that a veteran or a member of the armed forces community should have. What ministers increasingly recognise is that actually sometimes we need to go beyond that. We want to consciously advantage veterans in some walks of life, both as a part of recognition for what they do, for what they deliver for the nation while they serve, but actually because there are circumstances from their career that just need that little bit of extra help sometimes for some people who come out of that community for whom that transition is very difficult. So just a couple of examples recently. So giving a rail card to those who don't yet qualify for another rail card for veterans. You know, huge advantages in terms of being able to travel around, being able to hopefully get a job if you're having to pay the cost of commute and that sort of thing. That is a conscious advantage that ministers feel it's absolutely right to give to the veterans community, making it easier to join the civil service and hopefully the wider public sector as well. And I think the Covenant's got a real role to play in this. You know, we will be looking at our wider public sector colleagues who've signed up, particularly to the Armed Forces Covenant, but all of them ultimately, to take on board that commitment as well. It's really difficult. Everyone assumes if you're in central government you can tell organisations what to do. We absolutely cannot. Organisations are independent in their own right. Our charities are independent in their own right. Our public sector organisations are independent in their own right. But we want to work with them to make sure that these advantages that we're trying to make to improve how veterans feel, how successful they are in transitioning, are spread as widely as they possibly can. And I think the Covenant commitment is a real strong foundation for us to be able to do that. I'll stop there. We've got a great programme of work that we're trying to do. My last point would be some of what we want to achieve is going to challenge at times. It is going to challenge how we thought and looked at the veterans sector in the past. But I think it's really important that we get to do that from the great foundations that we inherit as the new kid on the block. And I'm really grateful that I've come into something that already the people I've met in this have got huge passion for what they do. They've got huge commitment, and there are some great foundations from which to start from. And everything that we want to do in making this a really great place, making this the best place in the world to be a veteran, is as much going to be about what we do, but it's going to be more about what all of you continue to do and do even more of in the future. So I really look forward to the opportunity to work with you all going forward. And thank you very much for coming to speak to you today. Really appreciate it.